Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Let's get creative. Trunk handles, super easy to make, look highly professional, very sturdy, but at the same time, this, like so many pieces and parts of our projects, we don't really come at this with a creative frame of mind. Let's change that. We're going to look at a couple of samples, and yet again, we're not even scratching the surface. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com, or check below. We've got links there, going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table. Let's see what we're talking about. We've got a great video on making our trunk handles, so we're not going to spend time on the specifics. Instead, let's spend time on the creative side of this. We're going to do 4 designs here. And again, we are not even scratching the surface, but I'm hoping this is going to get those creative gears going. There's no telling where we're going to go with this. So with our 4 designs, we're going to punch 2, bring in a second color behind that. Right here, we're going to cut a design, bring in a second color, and over here, I think this is going to be my favorite. That's going to be a Mexican basket weave, and we're going to drop a spot right in the middle. So when we bring a second color from behind, that's basically called a filigree cut with a liner. Now, when we do that, we need to back off on our face leather just a little bit. So right here, I'm in a natural veg tan, 3 to 4 ounce. We're going to bring a suede in behind that. Now, one of the coolest points to a filigree cut is, like say our project has got 2 colors, a primary and a secondary. Well, with our face, let's dye in our primary, and our secondary, let's bring that up behind. Not only is that going to be a beautiful touch, but it's going to bring the whole project together. So let's start right here. I've got a pattern for our blanks, and what I'm going to do is on my center line and at the center, I'm going to make a mark. From there, I'm going to make 3 marks either side at 7/8 of an inch out, or 2.2 centimeters. So let's mark both of our blanks from our pattern. Our marks are in. Let's jump over to our punch table, see what we can do with these. Larger round hole punches can be a little bit expensive, and I don't use these that often. But the point here is go with whatever you have. And in fact, that may push you to new creative directions. So what we're going to use here, 1/2 inch round hole and a 5/16 inch round hole. And let's just alternate these down our strap. Let's start with a 1/2 inch right on our center hole. Good, and now let's just alternate. Okay, that's going to look good, and again, super easy to do. Now, with our punches, who knows how many directions we could go with these. All kinds of designs we could punch, but let's do this. Let's take a 1 inch oblong, pretty standard size, and I'm just going to drop an oblong in on each of my holes. But I'm going to do my best to try to center this left to right. Good. And again, just one example of all the ways we could go with both our round end or our round hole and our end punches. Let's go back to our pattern table, look at our next design. Let's set these 2 aside, jump over to our 3rd design. So with this, a couple of quick notes. First off, looks like it's going to be a headache to measure out this pattern. Well, actually it's not. Let's measure out 1 diamond. Take our time, measure that out. Let's cut it out. Then we can trace that diamond in wherever we need it. Makes it very quick and very accurate. Now this diamond, go your own direction here, but this diamond is 1 inch by 1/2 inch, or 2.54 centimeters by 1.27 centimeters with a 1/2 inch spread. Now, when we're cutting a filigree, trunk handle, or any other project, it's a couple of things we need to think about. So right here, love this cool little diamond pattern. The problem is when we bend that around a trunk handle, that's exactly right. These 2 tabs are going to stick up. With a little bit of use, these 2 tabs are going to dog ear. It's going to look terrible. Cool little flower design, worse, because now our points, in no time at all, those are going to dog ear up and it's going to look terrible. These are just some things we need to think about when we're working on our design. But again, make this your own. So with this, let's drop this down, draw in our diamonds with our awl. Good, we've got that traced in. I don't know how well the camera's gonna pick that up, but I can certainly see that. Now, we can always use our box knife, but that's gonna be a headache to cut. Here's the easiest thing to do, just like with our filigree. And again, we've got a good video on that. But let's get some good thick foam and a craft knife. This is so easy to do. Now let's simply follow our line. We can always use a square if we need to, but for these smaller diamonds, I'm just gonna freehand this. Well, there we go. And that lifts right out. That looks good. Now, a big point. We're no longer stressed as to how hard it's going to be to cut out a design. So let's take that ball and run with it. Okay, so let's jump over to our fourth design. Now, to save us a little time, I've already dropped in our holes. Now, we're going to do a Mexican basket weave. Great video on this. But for the most part, my spread here is 1/4 of an inch across and lengthwise. We're going to drop in a spot right in the middle. So I believe I've got 10 holes on either side. Exactly. Now, we're not going to come in behind this with a different color. So let's bump this up to about a 5 to 6 ounce leather. Then we'll drop in our braid. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we've got dyeing and top coat and edge work in every one of our project videos. So we're going to skip over that. I'll do that. Then join me back over here. Let's start adding in some colors. Let's see what we can do with these. Our project is going to determine the color of our trunk handle, obviously. Well, actually, maybe not. We may see a combination or a design here where we create the project around the trunk handle. It's happened before, and it may happen again. Now, to keep me from blowing out this scene, talking about all the color combinations because I want to, I've just got a couple of swatches here. These are some of my favorite combinations. So right here, this is our Pro Dye Light Brown, medium brown antique with a leather balm top coat, and our lavender suede. That is a beautiful combination. White with black, absolutely. Now, not my favorite design. We could have gone a different way here, but let's knock it together and see what happens. So let's drop in a chocolate suede behind that. How about we use the same Pioneer behind the Pro Dye Walnut leather balm top coat? That's a nice combination. Love those two colors. How about we make this pop? This is one of my favorite dye combinations. This is a 50-50 mix of the Pro Light Brown and the Pro Mahogany dye. Let's make that pop with some suede behind it. In fact, I've got a similar briefcase. We'll look at that. Now right here, the reason I say I may design a project around my trunk handle, because I can't wait to see the saddle tan deer lace with a spot right in the middle. That's going to be a beautiful design. I think I'm going to create a briefcase around that. So that does happen. All right, so what I'm going to do, these are just swatches. What I'll do now is I'm going to overcut my backing. And we've got a good video on this, the filigree cut. But I'm going to overcut my backing, glue my handle down, and then trim this to size. Now, there's a super easy way to do this. Let's take our suede brush, or a good brush. Let's rough up that suede. There we go. Let's take our project, carefully lay that in. Now let's press all around our diamonds and our edge. Let's try not to hit the suede, but let's definitely press down on our diamonds. And there we go. I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Yeah, there we go. Well, I can see exactly where my diamonds are. So I know where I need my glue and where I don't want any glue. So what I'm going to do is add our liners to all of these. Then we'll come back over here because there's one more step we can take. Well, very happy with those color combinations. Those look good. Okay, next step. Let's set these aside. Let's jump over to our Mexican basket weave. Now I mentioned a briefcase. Well, right there, decorative handle. That's actually the same color I'm lining with and the same as my filigree cut. Right there, Mexican basket weave. Looks really good on a gusset. So with this, we've got a good video on this again, but let's just touch on the high points. So, use an 1/8 inch lace, so therefore I'm going to give my holes a 1/4 inch spread, both width and length. I'm going to go 10 times my length here. Now with this, let's start in our front hole. Permalock needles. one of the best inventions in leathercraft in 1,000 years. So let's bring this through, and I'm going to come back through the same hole on the other side. And let's equalize that out. Good. Okay, tuck that aside. So our first step, let's come across and down to the second hole. Good. Now let's come back up to our starting hole. Make sure our lace isn't twisted. That's one of the tricks of lacing, is to keep that good and flat. All right, so now we went to our second hole. Let's go across to our third hole. Now back to our second hole on our starting side. Okay, now let's continue that pattern all the way down. So as we approach the end, let's go to our last hole, opposite side, come back through. Let's go to our second hole from the end, starting side. And there we go. Let's go back through the last hole on the other side a second time. Looking good thus far. So let's take this, and I'm just going to run this up under my lace. And let's trim this off. Now what I want to do here, I rarely use this part of my blade. So let's lay our blade down and pull our lace across it. That way we don't cut into anything, okay? So with our Permalock needles, again, love these. What we need to do, let's cut a taper. There we go. Let's cut a taper on the end of our lace. Now, this has actually got a threaded hole in the end. So let's thread this by screwing that on. There we go. Got a good bite. Now let's just screw that all the way down. Nice. Now on this side, we're going to do exactly the same thing. But let's start right here. So this first piece of lace, I'm going to go under that and then over the second piece. Good. And now into our second hole on the other side. Now also too, I didn't mention this, but I'm using 1/8 inch lace, so therefore I'm going to go with an 1/8 inch round hole punch. Okay, so back to our first hole, our starting hole. Good. Now we're going to braid this. So notice I went under my first piece of lace. So now I'm going to go over that piece, under the second, and over the third. Good. Now into the third hole, and let's pull that down. So now back to the second hole, fourth hole. Now as we approach the bottom, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did on the first side. So we'll go through our last hole. And then let's come back up again to the second to the last hole on the other side. There we go. And finish that out simply by going again over and under. And through that last hole. Good. Okay, let's run this piece up under, maybe about three or four crosses back here. trim. Okay, we've got that. Well, that looks good. I like that color. But now let's do this. Let's take our needle and let's just kind of try to straighten that out a little bit. Okay, well, that looks pretty good. So let's do this. One more step. I typically do this on my quartz, but let's just right here. We're not really going to hammer down hard, but let's try to press that down. There we go. Get that to set nice and clean. Love that. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, boy, that looks good. I love that braid. And I'm just dying to try some chocolate. That'd be a nice contrast. The turquoise would make it pop. Okay, so enough of that. Let's do this. Let's reset for some spots because we knew we were going there anyway, didn't we? Setting spots, super easy to do. Well, now first off, we've got the Little Wonder. Great way to go. That sets just about everything in our shop. But if we don't have one, easy to do. So let's take a craft knife. Now we sell two kinds of blades. We're going to go with the longer blade. And right here, we've got a small pallet made out of cardboard. That's going to make sense here in just a second. So 5 steps to setting our spots. Now on this, I'm going to go with the antique nickel. That's my all-time favorite finish. So I've got my mark. Let's take our spot, and I'm just going to press that in around our mark. There we go. So now I can see where my tines are going to be. Let's take our pallet and our craft knife. Now I'm going to run my knife right through my leather. There we go, just enough to get those tines through. Let's flip that around. Hit that hole from the other side. Let's take a spot. Push that through. Now on our pallet here, if that doesn't go all the way through, we can always tap that in. And again, our cardboard's not going to let us ding our tines. So on our back, let's bend our tines over. Good. Now on our quartz, let's don't hit this hard enough to where we can ding it, but let's give that a good tap or two. There we go. Now, I can feel those tines, but they've curved in. Now on this is going to wrap around a piece of cord. It's not an issue. But because of that, if we don't have a backing, that's not going to snag or grab on anything. Okay, that looks good. Now on the balance, I'm not really sure which way to go here. So on our black and white, let's leave that right where it is. Well, now we could always go with a nickel spot, say depending on the color of our hardware. That would look pretty good. Or maybe we set that inside our suede. Well, let's leave this one where it is for now. Right there. That's going to look good. And again, let's go with our antique nickel, but let's drop these in between each of our diamonds. Well, that actually looks pretty good. We may go that direction, or we could drop in 2 spots around our diamond. So many ways we can go with this. Okay, let's set that aside. Now, really our hardware is going to be more dependent on our project, the hardware we're going to use there. But right there, I think let's leave that one where it is. Now, over here, again, not one of my favorites, but let's say right here. Now, notice the difference between brass plate and solid brass. World of difference in the look. But let's maybe drop in a single spot between each band there. Okay, well that looks pretty good. Let's set that aside. That might just dress that up, but I almost think an antique nickel would look good on that. Right there, that is beautiful. So, tough choice here, but I think maybe let's go with our polished nickel spot. Maybe we can do a design on either side of that. Kind of pull that whole thing together. There we go. Well, that is certainly going to dress up that trunk handle nicely. So I'm going to set some spots here, then we'll take our last step. Well, I had to drop something in on that black, but I think that looks very good. So now with this, I've jumped down to a 3/16 inch spot. I almost feel like that might be a better choice on our trunk handles. Same spot there. But again, antique nickel, my absolute favorite. So those look good. Well, we might need a little work here. Maybe a little more complicated design with our spots might dress that one up. Well, I had to add in one more spot on either end of that. Yeah, to close that off. Right here, if we're going to go with a little more complicated design, let's go ahead and work with a pattern on that so we can make sure these line up. But they absolutely do. That looks good. Okay, last step. I'm going to drop in a chisel line. I'm going to sew these onto some cord. Then let's see what they look like finished. In my opinion, we absolutely have a winner. That is a beautiful trunk handle, and I will definitely create a project around that. This, love the colors there. Nice addition with the spots. Same thing there. Now, I said I wasn't going to add anything to that, but, well, I had to. I wanted to see what that looked like. But again, I'm always threatening to drop a spot inside my cutouts. I have yet to do that, but I bet that's going to be beautiful when I do. Love the color combination there. Not really my favorite, but two big points here. Notice how flexible that is. No binding whatsoever. But also the bands. There might very well be an idea in there, some type of a banded trunk handle. Not really one of my favorites. Our spots are simply too big and too prominent, but I do love the color combination. Now, we didn't go into stamps. Well, there's a reason for that. We could absolutely do a design, but because we're bending this around a cord, it's going to back out on us. It'll still be there, but it won't look as good as we would like. We could always add some type of a thread, say a decorative stitch in here, and all the ways we can go with lace simply beyond that. And one more thing, still trying to figure out what to do with those, but all told, very happy with the outcome here. And yet again, a place in leathercraft where the creative possibilities are unlimited. I hope you come up with a trunk handle so beautiful that you create a project around the handle. I hope this is good information for you. Good luck with your projects.